up, guys? Outerpop here. Welcome to another episode of the RaftCast. I am joined today by my cohorts, Benny and Popcorn. Say hi, guys.
What up?
Yes, that is it. What up? That is the intro. Anyways, so we kind of already talked about this in an unaired pilot. We kind of already talked about travel-related topics in an unaired pilot. But I think we're going to talk about it again, and while I can't really remember what we talked about the last time, because I feel like it was months ago since that first pilot came out, we're just going to be talking about, what's the general thing we did want to talk about today? I'm actually forgetting now.
Well, I think we should start... Oh, sorry, Popcorn, please. You have the floor.
No, Benny, by all means.
Why, thank you, sir. I believe that we should begin the conversation with where we've been. Where we would like to go should follow.
Alright, that is fair. Would somebody like to start with where they have been?
Classified.
Ooh.
Classified. Bullshit, classified.
I've been to every continuous...
File not found.
Contiguous.
What? Contiguous United States, except for Alaska. Wait, that's not contiguous.
That's not contiguous.
Well, it is to me, because Canada, I want to conquer it. But,
there's a reason it's called contiguous, is because 48 of them are connected, the other two are not. They are not contiguous states.
Contiguous.
So you've been to all the contiguous states and Hawaii.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But if I had my way...
I'm with it. But if you had your way...
If I had my way, I would make the Western Canada a state, and then Alaska would be contiguous, and I would have made that statement correct.
Okay, then.
But I've also been to Canada, and
Canada, eh?
Yeah, Canada, and it is so gorgeous in the summer, and probably in the spring and some parts of the fall.
How far north did you ever get?
Oh, never farther than the borders.
Oh, okay. I got
I'm terrified of the open wilderness. Like it's probably. I mean, I wonder if it's like the wilderness of Alaska, where people could just disappear.
I mean, there's still a bunch of civilization up in Canada and Alaska, though, even that far north.
But between civilizations, there's a lot of wilderness, and a lot of things like moose that could just like skewer you with a single tilt of a head.
Okay, first off, they're more likely to kick you or bash you than they to skewer you, because their antlers are a little bit more blunt.
Yeah, but they're frightening.
I mean, yeah, they can get to like 1,500 pounds.
All right, fine. But whether you have a spear or a shield, I assume that you're more likely to be kicked in the movie 300 too.
Did you say ray shields?
What? This episode's sponsored by Ray Shields.
No, it is not.
Raise the shields!
Oh, jeez. Yeah, he's just kidding around. That's that happened.
Benny's gonna Benny.
All right, so but you haven't been anywhere else besides barely the border of Canada and then the States.
But who needs to look past their own backyard when you got state fairs and national parks and wonderful like tour locations, even the small ones like.
I mean that's true, because even the contiguous states are incredibly diverse in terms of a single country. It's probably one of the most diverse in terms of landscapes.
Yeah, so better yourselves everywhere else.
What about you, Popcorn? Where have you been?
Oh, where have I been? Quite a few places. Living where I do in the UK, it does give you the advantage that you can see lots of different countries with different cultures relatively quickly. Mm-hmm. So
I feel like that's just Europe in general.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've popped over to France, Italy, Malta, visited Spain and Portugal last year for the first time, been in Croatia, but I've spent a fair bit of time in America as well.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Yeah, where'd you go?
I went through the 7 states of New England. Do not ask me to name them.
That's fine.
And California as well. And in 2016, when I was with a friend, we were doing a little bit of a road trip around the US. So we did cross over the border into Canada and have a peek at Niagara Falls. And I do agree with you guys. North America as a continent is huge and diverse, and it's
Oh, yeah.
got stunning natural beauty, and there's so many different things that you can see. And I very much understand why many Americans don't even get out of their own country or feel the need to even get a passport.
Yeah. But I mean, if I did live in Britain, just like you do, I would definitely get a passport because, yeah, you got a ton of countries just pretty much like, I'm not gonna say your backyard, but over the to the next town over, in a sense.
Well, I think it's also accurate to say that, I mean, think of if you're looking at just the U.S. and Europe as like the cut from the same cloth, except there's the biggest difference in that in the U.S., I mean, there are a whole bunch of different states, but there are a crap ton of different landmarks, landscapes, biomes, stuff like that. But then you have Europe, which might not be quite as diverse in that respect, but it is very diverse with the various countries and cultures and customs and whatnot. So I mean, double-edged sword. Like, both areas do have their diversity and their merit when it comes to living there.
Especially when you go east. East Europe has so much culture still, and I kind of attribute it to the Cold War. I feel like the Western countries of Europe developed more economically, but I feel like the Eastern countries, who had so much less money, developed a lot more culturally, and retained a lot of the customs and kept a lot of their. I mean, not that the Western countries don't have culture. Of course they do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the Western cultures. Modern France doesn't look that much different to modern Britain.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I know you wouldn't know about that, but no, to the ignorant American, that's kind of what it looks like to me.
It's a tough one to call. I mean, bear in mind, I've only visited certain cities, so you can't base your judgment on an entire country on just one city. I mean, personally, I'm not a fan of Paris, but
Fine.
There's more to France than just Paris.
Yeah, and there's more to Britain than London, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have spent time in Poland as well, which is a former Eastern country.
Yes.
There's a lot more ancient history in some of these countries. That's probably been better preserved than in Western countries. I don't know whether that's because of the Soviet bloc or anything like that, but there's definitely you notice the difference there, the transition between West and East.
Poland, Hungary, Estonia, all these different places, like fascinating people and very proud people. I mean, to an extent, everyone is, but you can definitely see the difference in buildings. Just by looking at them, but also if you start to talk to these people, their points of view are vastly. I don't know. They seem a little more nationalist, but not in a bad way.
It's such a difficult one to say because obviously a lot of countries now they also have large migrant populations.
Yes, unfortunately, yes, yeah. But no, crap.
It's not unfortunate, but I mean, like when I was in Rome, for example, you turn up at the Colosseum. I mean, that's an experience in itself. You're walking down the street and you turn the corner and you say, bloody hell, there's the Colosseum. There's a great big huge thing that's like 2,000 years old and it's just Colosseum. There. Yeah, it's just there. It is the Colosseum.
Yeah.
And you have like a lot of like migrant workers there trying to sell you tourist bits and bobs.
Like the pyramids. Same thing with pyramids.
And, you just have to, weave your way through it and, get to do what you want to do. So, yeah, it's very much these major cities become, I don't know, exciting melting pots of culture, I like to say.
I need to very quickly, before it gets too far away, walk my statement back. When I say migrants are in these other countries, when I say unfortunate, I don't mean these damn migrants coming to take our stuff. I mean it's fortunate they've been just moved from their homelands. That's what I mean. That it's unfortunate that they've been relocated. That's all I meant.
Unfortunate that they were displaced.
Yes, displaced. That's the word.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with it. I gotcha.
Well, America is built on migration.
Yes, it is. Strictly speaking, I'm a little confused on how we got to this point, but whatever. This is not the topic. It was not talking about immigration.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
America woke up one day after a hard day's drinking. It looked around and said, "Where the fuck am I?"
I know exactly how we got over here. Britain decided they wanted to send all kinds of criminals over here, and look what happened. They revolted.
It's Australia.
Well, no, there was. I mean, criminals, as in like because think of the Puritans, right? They were so hard in their beliefs that Britain was like, we don't really want you here, so you better go somewhere else, or well, we better not see you here anymore. And so they went to the Netherlands, and the Netherlands was like, hey, welcome. But they were disgusted how liberal the Netherlands was, so they're like, oh, we'll just go to the New World. And yeah, so yeah, they're essentially criminals in the sense that they're they were too extreme.
Well, I think part of it too was that there was also a bit of an overcrowding in some of the British prison systems, so they just wanted to send some of them to another place where they actually had room, which for a while was America. But then, once things started heating up, then they started sending them to Australia instead, because it's like, okay, well, we can't send them to America anymore.
I understand. You were talking about like people who were in prison. I was talking about the Puritans, where the misconception is that they were being persecuted, so they left.
Yeah, I mean that as well. I mean, I'm a little bit less familiar with that, but I do know of that.
Well, I know that because I'm actually related to a Mayflower person, so I did a lot of research.
See, most of my ancestors came from Europe, and not really from that long ago though. My ancestors are a little bit more recent than that, especially from Scandinavia.
I don't believe that. Hey, Popcorn, answer me something. Hey, Popcorn, if Americans evolved from Europeans, why are there still Europeans? Huh?
What?
Because we didn't send everybody. Not everybody could afford to go.
Not everybody wanted to go.
No, never mind. I'm not going to explain. Never mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
If humans evolved from monkeys, they're still monkeys.
Anyway, I don't think I've yet talked about where I've been, which it's kind of somewhere in the middle of you two, because Popcorn, you've definitely traveled to a variety of countries and even gone over here. And Benny's, pretty much been around the US, whereas I've kind of been somewhere in the middle-ish, because I have not been to the contiguous states, but I have been to a lot of them. I've even lived in very different states as well. I mean, I was born and raised in Minnesota, which is basically like, central north of the country. And then I was in New York for a couple years, like right on the East Coast. And then I was in Colorado for my middle school and high school years. So, mountains and, altitude and stuff. Then I was in Nebraska, which...
I'm just kidding.
Oh, jeez. I was in Nebraska for college, which it is the Midwest like Minnesota is, but it's still very different. And it might be right next to Colorado. But Nebraska and Colorado are two very different states. Dude. I mean... landscape-wise, culturally, economically, they're so different.
You can say that about any states next to each other. Like even states that seem like they would be very similar, like Kansas and Oklahoma. Even though they're very, very similar, they're also very it's Oklahoma and Texas, Kansas, Missouri, like just any two states next to each other.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's very true. But Again, I was back and forth between Colorado and Nebraska in a very kind of recent and short period of time, I guess you could say. So the cultural differences between the two of them are almost like polar opposites. It's kind of crazy.
That's true. Cultural differences.
Yeah. Which actually was kind of similar between Minnesota and New York, and because Midwest versus East Coast, very different atmospheres. Very different. New York and Colorado, not too dissimilar, but there were definitely some differences. But those are just the states I've lived in, but I mean, I've been to a lot of other states as well, especially for, just general travel or camping trips. I've also been to Hawaii. Well, I think that was back in 2018.
Yeah, Hawaii, it's on my list.
You could also say like New York and New York City are very different places. You know,
True.
that's how different it can be just in the same state.
Oh yeah, well, and here's the funny thing. I actually used to live on Long Island. I was a 2-hour train ride from New York City.
Yeah.
But the differences between New York City and Long Island, huge. Oh my gosh, the culture and atmosphere and just a whole lot of okay, food less so. The food was almost identical, honestly. But everything else was just so different because I didn't really live in a rural area, but it wasn't quite suburban. It was a bit of a smaller town still.
I mean, if you want to look at diversity between areas, I mean,
don't.
Well, we are going to anyway. Avert thine eyes, Benny, or ears. But,
No.
but no, I mean, in the UK, I mean, you can go like 15 miles down the road and the accent changes completely. And sometimes even the food can change radically as well.
Oh,
Every area's got its own like speciality.
I've noticed that on local media sites. You know, they'll go one like a city in Ireland, and then they'll go like a few miles down to a local news station. You know, and like the country Ireland is so different from the city Ireland, and it seems understandable that there'd be so many accents in Britain, despite it being such a small place. I don't know. It's just never mind. I have no end to that point.
No, I thought the diversity of American accents was incredibly vast, but the fact that there's such a diversity of British accents in such a small landmass is equally as impressive.
It's insane how different the accents are.
Yeah. But what would you consider your accent to be?
Liverpool.
Yeah.
Okay.
The same as Wacko.
Yeah, Scouts. Wacko Warner, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Louisiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Columbus. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, the accent I speak is the technical term is Scouse.
Scouts.
Gotcha.
Which is also the name of our staple food that we're known for, which is like a stew, which was based off Norwegian lobscouse.
Okay.
And so we're called Scousers as well.
Gotcha.
But we have very different quirks when it comes to food, like chip butties, for example. You'll love a chip butty. Carbs on carbs.
Oh, yes. Well, there's a lot of carb foods in New England, too, and you might have had some influence in that.
Possibly, yeah. And then obviously you go down to London and you've got your Cockney accents. If you ever have time and you need a laugh, go onto YouTube and Google Al Pacino Cockney accent.
Oh boy.
Does he try one? Is it as bad as Dick Van Dyke's accent in Mary Poppins?
It's probably worse. It's a very old film from like the early 80s.
Oh jeez.
And so it's I don't know what he's talking, to be brutally honest. But I don't know, 8 out of 10 for effort. He doesn't sound American in it.
I mean,
but
it's
I
no
don't think
Scarface,
he sounds
sure.
British either.
Mr. Pacino, what are you?
But you know, but then you look at if it just briefly on that with like an actor like James Masterson, who played Spike in Buffy.
Oh man, I never really watched that, so I don't know his name.
Oh, I don't know the actor's actual name. I think it was James Masters or James Masterson, something like that.
I don't know. I can picture the face, but I have no idea what the name is behind it.
Well,
here's the funny thing. Mom would know.
Well, of course, you know, it's her age demographic.
Yeah, that was her shit growing up. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was with her and vampires. Like Buffy, True Blood. Like, I don't know, man.
Dude,
Vampire Diaries. Jeez.
Everyone had a vampire phase. Okay, it's okay. It's fine. Not everyone, but like so many people in the last decade. The 2010s.
I'd say late 2008, or like the 2000s to the early 2010s. Yeah, there's definitely a bit more of a vampire craze going around. I don't fully understand it personally. That's not my kind of supernatural or fantasy like hype.
I mean, I find that decades can blend, so I can't just say the decade stopped at 2010 and then
right.
Well, the main thing I wanted to raise about that is that because he did such an excellent Cockney accent, and I think it's also very, very good writing because anybody can like talk in the accent, but you have to get like the mannerism of the way communicating it,
Mm-hmm.
and the grammar and syntax.
Yeah, because there's one particular scene where he called Angel a tit. And it just wouldn't work with an American accent in quite the same way.
I mean, that's why certain words are a lot more taboo. And I don't know. I feel like tit sounds a little funnier and a little less like insulting. If I just called you a tit,
that is literally what Angel turned around. He goes, "Did you just call me a tit?"
You'd be like, what the hell are
the
you talking
humor
about?
comes in that reaction. So there's more to it than simply the accent. There's all that inflection that comes with it.
Well, it's a lot softer when the Australians call you the C word. It's compared to the States.
It's more like cunt, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
No,
that is a red line word in the UK.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
You don't get drunk and say that to somebody.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly, you'll be waving goodbye to your teeth.
Honestly, it's kind of the same here. I feel like it's a word that we do not use over here very much, even to those people who don't like each other.
Right. I mean, well, no, Australia actually sounds more like can't. But
yeah, I suppose. I suppose so. I must have been mistaken my accents. Whoops.
You might have been up in the Scotland area, Scotland. Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's a tough one to understand sometimes.
Yeah.
Hardcore Glaswegian. It's almost as bad as like North Liverpool Bootle.
Yeah.
But the accents have evolved quite a lot as well. It's very different now. It's a lot softer than what it was 40 or 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You go back then and like some 70-year-old from like 1975, I wouldn't have understood them.
And speaking of accents, this actually ties back into me continuing the conversation from earlier. But while I haven't been to as many states as Benny, obviously, and I haven't been to as many countries as Popcorn, I have spent time outside of the U.S. and Portugal, and the differences between Portuguese accents, there are actually quite a few different dialects, but it's also very different from Brazilian Portuguese as well, which I have actually heard on a frequent basis because I actually did some research in college with a Brazilian Portuguese student we actually worked on the same research project together. I helped her with her research, and we were helping our professor with another research project, and that second one actually got published in a scientific journal, so that was kind of cool. So I have my name in a scientific paper in a journal, so that's fun. Yeah.
Nice.
Your real name?
Huh?
Your real name?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, this is college. This was before I ever had the Otterpop moniker, really.
Oh.
I thought you've always been Otterpop.
I mean, I think I've been Otterpop for a long time, but I definitely was not making content very much, if at all, by the time that I was, doing this research, so.
We do support your transition.
Yeah, back then it was mostly just carpool karaoke.
Yeah, that was. I remember that. That was so long ago.
Yeah, I remember it too.
Oh man, that was definitely during my senior year. Because most of the time I was doing those videos when I was on my way to Seward County, because I actually volunteered with the sheriff's department there. It's the county that borders Lincoln's county. Which funny enough, Lincoln, its county is not called Lincoln. Lincoln County is a completely different county in Nebraska for whatever reason. But I can't remember what the county that I can't remember what the county is called that Lincoln is in. But no, Seward County was right next door, essentially. But there were only like not even 10,000 people in the whole county, and Seward itself was maybe like 7,000 or something like that. But the sheriff there was actually a professor my freshman year in college, So that's kind of how I got that gig. But anyways, sorry, getting slightly off track. But yeah, when I heard a bunch of Brazilian Portuguese, and I thought it was really cool and fascinating. Like, not just hearing the accent itself, but even some of the words. And by the time I got to Portugal, like 5 years later, I was like, whoa, this is very different. Like the spelling, the accents, the words, the phrases, it's all the same language essentially, but the way everything is said is so different.
I was going to say, considering the differences, you could hear the differences in Portuguese, being said by someone from Portugal, like anywhere in Portugal. No matter where you are, it's going to be different from the Portuguese that you hear in Brazil. You could hear the difference in both, the speed at which the words are said, and also in tone and inflection, as Popcorn always says is very important if you're ever going to imitate one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, because I remember you talking about your Portugal trip a while back, but I also know that you weren't there for very long, so you didn't get to explore much of it. But what were you able to do when you were visiting Portugal, Popcorn?
That was an experience. Oh my word. Yeah, the Cliff Notes version is that we had a nice little coach ride around the outskirts of the city, and we also had a tram ride through the heart of the city. It's very old, very historical. A lot of the roads were very twisty and windy. There were a lot of building works going on, unfortunately. I think they were replacing half the sewer system. But the place was still packed with tourists. And bear in mind, this is like late October, and it was still quite warm. So it was. I definitely got the impression that it was a place that I want to go back to and explore properly.
I would highly recommend it, because how long did you spend there? I forget.
It was a handful of hours, maybe like 6 hours tops.
Okay, so I've definitely got the edge there, because I spent 2 weeks there. Actually, more like 15 days, but semantics. And I was mostly in Lisbon, which in Portuguese is Lisboa. It almost sounds like Lisboa, not Lisboa. It was Lisboa, is what it's referred to as in Portuguese. But I also spent a couple days in Peniche and Nazaré, which is a lot further north. Nazaré is basically the surf capital of the world. I mean, I think it was 7 of the 10 largest waves ever surfed have been in Nazaré.
Okay, like based on wave size.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, based on like wave height or something like that.
Sure.
Because I mean, if you look at a map of like, the water around Nazaré, I'm sure that there are plenty of maps around. But if you look at how there are some like crazy canyons in the water around Nazaré and the crazy cliff around as well, I mean, it's no surprise that the waves get as massive as they do.
Okay.
But I mean, but I still remember a lot of those experiences when I was in Portugal. I mean, not just the food, but just the general culture and the feel of it. And my sister and I also went around Thanksgiving time, and the Christmas decorations across the entirety of Lisboa, no matter what part of the city you were in. Holy crap, they love Christmas. I have never seen so many Christmas or winter decorations in a single home or city. It puts, like, because Benny, I'm sure that there are some crazy people that like fill their front yards and backyards with Christmas and Halloween stuff. I'm sure you've seen that from time to time.
Sure, but I've also seen entire towns and cities just destroy itself with Christmas like decorations and lights, just to the point where like it's like a community effort. So I don't know if it's going to be some of America's Christmas towns, but let's hear it. You
would be surprised. I mean, there are lights and decorations everywhere on every single one of the buildings, and the crazy part is, as many decorations as there are and lights and just everything, it's not messy at all. It's very organized and elegant. Like, I've never seen such well-placed decorations in a town before for any holiday. I was amazed. And I'm trying to remember, but there's the central plaza in Lisboa that my parents actually lived relatively close to. It was just a quick tram ride and a couple blocks walk away from where they lived. But there is this huge tree in the middle of the plaza, like one of those like empty frames, like just full of lights. It had to have been like 50 feet tall or something like that, maybe even taller. And people would go inside and they would be, playing games and enjoying food together and just dancing and music and festivities. And again, this is in November. This is still during COVID times, because this was 2021. So this was still kind of around the height of COVID. And there were still people, there were, even hundreds of people just gathering in the big plaza, and just, there was so much joy and festivity throughout the entire event. It was gorgeous.
I believe you. You said I would be surprised, though. That's hard to do. I have to see it for myself, just based on the amount of Christmas towns I've seen in my lifetime in the States. And I'm not trying to be ethnocentric. I'm not trying to be America-centric, because that's what I naturally am inclined to do, being American. So I have to open my mind. I'll see what you have to show.
I think another thing to remember, though, is that, especially like in the more southern Europe areas, Christmas is far more intensely religious.
Yes, most definitely.
So
yeah, but
a lot of this kind of stuff is going to be driven by religion and celebration of the religious aspects of Christmas, rather than like the more commercial kind of stuff that we might see in other parts of the country or in the world.
Popcorn, I gotta stop you there. I feel like at least the people I've met throughout my lifetime, and to be fair, I've only lived in urban areas and suburban areas, and not in intercountry areas. I've noticed that it feels like more and more secular people and non-religious people are enjoying and celebrating Christmas, harder and harder. And I do feel that it doesn't have to be a religious thing to pull up, a big Christmas extravaganza. I love Christmas. I am absolutely not a religious person. I love Christmas, and I love going to Christmas towns. And some of the people I've seen don't necessarily, celebrate Christmas for the religious reasons. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a religious thing.
Well, that's true, but there also, it also is a very strong component, because, those kinds of individuals who are very religious do tend to hold those holidays very close to them, and they're incredibly meaningful to them. Not that they're not meaningful to, people like us, because, I'm atheist, so, Christmas is less of a religious thing for me, and kind of more of, just like, getting together with family, having good times. But I think also in America, there's a greater diversity of religions, whereas in, maybe a smaller place like Portugal or even Lisbon, it's a little bit, it's not quite as diverse, and there's a lot more people that share very similar ideals and faiths.
And that's the point I was trying to put across, because it's going to be more religious centric in like the southern European areas.
Right.
You go further north and it's more secular. Like in the UK, there's less emphasis on the religious side to what it was maybe 40 or 50 years ago.
I'm moving more toward your point. You're right, because Lisboa is going to be mostly Catholic, and therefore they're going to be more unified in how they celebrate and what they believe and what actually stirs them in a meaningful way. So yeah, that is going to be the case. But I don't know. I felt as an atheist myself.
Whatever religious people might feel when they think about religion when it comes to Christmas, I just feel more in tune with the universe or something. I don't know how it is. It just feels warm and nice to be with family. And when I see, it's like how whether or not you're
Christmas in America is an American holiday. It's not necessarily a Christian holiday. So it's not necessarily the same holiday that Lisbon celebrates, right?
Well, it will be Christmas.
Well, sure, it's called that.
Yeah.
But
But they put the Christ into Christmas in these
They do.
areas.
They keep it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I was going off the fact that I've had a lot of people in my life like, oh, this commercialism, it's too much. Like, we need to stop with the lights and bring the Christ back. But I'm okay with it.
Sorry, I'll admit I was a little bit half distracted. I was actually looking through my gallery to see if I could find some images that I was talking about the decorations and about like Nazare and stuff. And
You'd probably like Malta as well.
Huh?
Malta's
Malta and
equally
Scully
going-
from X-Files?
No.
Well, no,
Malta, the country.
Malta.
Yeah.
Malta.
I think I found two good ones. So one of the pictures is of one of the main streets in Lisboa, and this is actually pretty tame for decorations. And the other is the tree in the plaza that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
that's
seen
not too dissimilar to what I saw in London in November.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some towns like that in Pennsylvania, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
California, even Northern California.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll have to do better than that.
Again, this is one of the tamer streets and
You don't want to overwhelm
areas.
me. I get it.
Well, no, I just don't have pictures for some reason. Like it was just much more enjoyable just to simply, see and
Otter,
watch
you have
and
to
stuff.
believe in Christmas to find the Christmas pics.
He's beginning to believe.
He's beginning to believe.
Oh man, no, it was
The one.
it was just lovely to see. Here I'm actually going to share this as well. But this is an image of Nazare and what the water and the cliffs look like underwater, basically.
Oh, underwater cliffs.
Yeah, but I mean,
Now that looks-
but
Now that's Christmas.
yeah, okay, but yeah, that's the reason that the waves can get so big in Nazare is because of these crazy cliffs.
Wow.
I can't even remember how deep some of them can get. It's pretty intense. It's thousands of feet, I think. I wish I could translate that to meters, but I can't.
Can you translate it to Portuguese?
3 to
Okay.
600 meters.
Oh man,
Somewhere
I could
between
have.
1 meter
Benny.
and the Marianas Trench.
That's a very impressive hole in the water.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. So that deepest portion right there is about upwards of like 2,000 meters.
Imagine the sea life down there.
I know. 2,000 meters to feet. What is that?
So
Yeah,
that's
it's
where the Meg's been hiding.
that's like 6,500 feet.
Of course, that's where you would hide the Megatron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than meets the eye.
Uh,
But also,
yeah.
I mean, your parents have been like traveling around Europe, aren't they? In Germany right now.
No,
Germany?
no, they're no longer in Europe. They're actually in South America right now. They're gonna be
Oh, right.
They're gonna be in South and Central America this year.
But not South Germany?
I think. Geez, I don't even remember if they went to Germany when they
That's
were
where
in
my
Europe.
family's from. I
So
wanted
it would seem to pop up in conversations that they were thinking about going there. Did they just go to Portugal in the end?
Well, I mean, no, they went to a variety of places. I mean, they were in Portugal for a couple of years. That's actually right around the time that my sister and I were in Portugal.
Yeah.
But then they were in Spain for a little bit. I think they were back in Portugal at some point. They went to France for a bit. They wanted to go to Norway and Sweden because a lot of my dad's ancestry comes from there. So, he kind of wanted to visit his quote unquote homeland. But they did go to Slovakia and the Czech Republic. And I think they went to Slovenia as well.
Did they go to Gibraltar at any point?
Oh my gosh. I think they did because Mom wanted to go to Morocco for a little bit because her stepdad's family lives there.
Did you see the big rock?
Ah.
I don't know. I know they saw goats.
Oh, there's
uh,
monkeys in Gibraltar.
Going back, you said quote unquote homeland. I'm actually curious. Could you expound on that?
Well, are you talking about with Scandinavia with my dad?
Well, you said your dad wanted to go back to his quote unquote homeland. Is it because that his homeland was called something else or was under a different rule at the time?
No,
What do you
no, 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 no. Sorry, I probably should have clarified, but a lot of my dad's ancestry, like at least 75% of it, goes back to Norway and Sweden. And that's actually where our last name comes from, because our last name as a family is Otterson, which comes from son of Ottar, which is Norwegian in origin, and we have a lot of ties back to that area. Even Mom has a little bit of Scandinavian in her as well. So my sister and I are about 40% Scandinavian in general. We're also a little bit Finnish too, but we definitely have a lot of roots in Norway and Sweden. And Dad really wanted to go there for a little while.
There's a lot of Scandinavia is amazing because both Germany and England. I'm going to say myself, Germany's my grandfather's homeland, and Britain, which is Popcorn's homeland. We wouldn't really have the people we have today without the Scandinavians. Going all over the place and settling and just sort of becoming the lands that they settled in.
I mean, you're right.
We love the Scandinavians, don't we? Don't we, Popcorn?
You better, because I'm technically Scandinavian.
You better.
You better.
There's many areas in Liverpool that are named after, old Scandinavian Viking names.
And there's a bunch of words in the English language that wouldn't be here without the Viking language, the Viking tongue, Old Germanic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, because obviously, Otter, with your parents, they do something that many Americans don't really get the opportunity to do, and that is travel extensively outside of the US and see lots of different European countries and take in all those different cultures.
Well, and I mean, not only are they doing it with Europe, they want to do it all over. I mean, again, they want to explore a lot of Central and South America this year. They want to go to Africa at some point, and they probably want to explore more of Europe and, a little bit of Asia as well. And I know they've talked about going to Australia and New Zealand. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, that's where New Zealand is, where Lord of the Rings was filmed. Who wouldn't want to go there?
I'll say this.
The country of the giant beetles.
Yes! I want to see giant beetles!
I don't. Ever.
I like insects. Really like insects.
Insects. It's the only kind of sex you like is insects.
Hey!
Because, hey, we're both asexual.
That sounded so bad.
We're both asexual. That makes sense.
Wrong kind of
incest.
Sect. Not
Sect.
sect. Insect.
Not cest.
No, but
Oh God,
going back
Popcorn, you made it worse.
Going back to what Popcorn was saying about something Americans don't get to do. Here's something Americans do get to do, though, if they live, say, in where I grew up in California and Texas, or now Texas for a year. Is I get a lot of insight from Mexican and Central and South American cultures. I know a lot more about Peru and Honduras and San Salvador and even Brazil for a little bit. I learned a lot more about Argentina and anywhere else, Nicaragua. So I know a lot more now about the southern places that Europeans probably wouldn't get to know a lot about unless they traveled all the way here. So we do get a taste of cultural, as long as we go to the right places in the United States. Nicaragua, yeah, I knew a lot of migrants growing up, and that's why I love them so much. Also, I married one. I married a Chinese migrant.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have necessarily a whole lot of Central and South American people, but we do have a very high Hispanic population here. My sister's best friend is actually, his family is Hispanic as well. So I believe it or not, but there are a ton of different kinds of restaurants here. Quite a few American, but there's plenty of diversity, and there's a lot of really good Hispanic restaurants here because we have such a high population of those individuals here.
You guys got that chili taco thing that the green chilies?
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah,
that's delicious.
That's a staple.
When I visited
here.
Colorado, that's that. Anytime I go to Colorado, I always get that.
Oh, there's so many farmers that will grow their own chilies and make their own chilies and salsas and stuff, and then sell those. I'm not usually a big fan of spicy stuff, and I still usually tend to avoid it because I'm a wuss when it comes to spice. But that shit is good.
I'm glad you said wuss. For a second there, I thought you were going to say because I don't know why. I don't know why you'd ever say that. I thought you were going to say because I'm a woman. I'm like, on Women's History Month. What are you doing?
Excuse me. No.
I know. I don't know why. It's my stupid brain.
My sister and my mother make up for my lack of being able to handle spice. They can tolerate some really spicy stuff. Dad used to as well, although he's not able to as much anymore, possibly because he's getting older, but who knows.
I mean, his stomach shouldn't be able to handle it, but his mouth should be more able to tolerate it. It's weird. It kind of... The older you get, the easier it is for you to taste it, but not necessarily digest it.
Yeah, I mean, that probably makes sense, because, yeah, he absolutely loves spicy stuff, but yeah, he just eats less of it nowadays, because, yeah, it doesn't sit well in his stomach anymore.
Yeah, and you don't want to be passing it out either.
Yeah, no, not so much. And then there's me. It's like, I can probably digest it fine, but my mouth can't handle it. My tongue can't handle spice.
Well, that's just practice. You practice it, you do it over and over and over. Eventually you will, even if you say, oh, I'll never get this. You'll get it.
And then you can become a navigator in June.
Well, because
give me that tasty spice melange.
Everybody has their own flavor preferences, and mine just happened to be, you know, I tend to lean more towards bitter and citrusy stuff, and a little bit less towards salty and sweet stuff, and then no to the sour and spicy stuff. Like that's just who I am. That's just my preferences.
Same thing with me. I'm bitter. I'm no to the sweet, bitter and.
Except I'm not salty.
Yeah, bitter and citrusy or soury or umami, and spicy is like my number 2. I like bitter first.
My sister's all kinds of salty and spicy.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
No, she can't stand bitter though. She doesn't like bitter, so.
Well, that's what you're for.
Well, no.
You handle the bitter.
I handle the
a
bitter.
little bitter. Bitter. It's a German word. I want to visit the Schwarzwald. That's where my family was from.
Schwarzwald? Nice.
Schwarzwald, yeah. The Black Forest.
Black Forest, yep.
So, yeah, I mean, that brings me to that other point. You know, what places would be kind of like on your guys' bucket lists to visit in the future?
Are you kidding? I want to go to Germany at some point. Really want to go. I'm still salty because I was told... Yes, I'm very bitter about it. I was told I was probably going to go to Germany for a work trip, but then COVID hit, and all the travel restrictions started sinking in, so...
Another thing to blame the Germans on.
Well, and unfortunately is that travel's been, like, even though I feel like we're kind of past COVID at this point enough, and, you know, travel has been kind of normal. Well, I'd say normal, but travel, at least for our company, has definitely been a little more restricted. And it just doesn't happen as frequently, which kind of stinks, because, I mean, I frankly, though, I think it would be cool to go to the UK or Germany, because, I mean, you know, there could be a reason for me to go there. You know, work-related. But it's kind of silly. I don't know if either of you have seen or heard of a TV show called Grimm, but...
Yes, I've heard of it.
Okay, but there's a lot of German words and places and names and influences in that show. So it kind of... A lot
of the stories and folktales come from Germany.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that also has gotten me a little bit more interested in Germany in general. So I kind of would love to go there at some point. And obviously, I'd love to go to New Zealand because that's where they filmed Lord of the Rings and it's so beautiful.
It is stunning.
I want to go so bad.
Oh yeah, Germany's also on my list. I would at least like to get to visit Berlin, but also maybe Dortmund and a couple of other cities in Germany.
Yeah, I would like
Dortmund.
to see both Berlins.
That's where my company's based out of.
Yeah, Berlin. Sorry, I'd like to see both Berlins. Oh, so bad.
What about you guys? Or what about you, Benny?
Definitely. Again, the Schwarzwald. I'd like, and if I had like a time machine, I'd just like to see the history of Germany, you know, unfold. I know that I might come off as like some pro German fanatic, but I'd love. Yeah. I'd love. My family's from there. Not all my family. My father's family. My father's parents were. I've told the story before, but my father's parents, you know, around World War II, had to basically flee the country as my grandfather was drafted into the war. So when he was born, when my grandfather was born, There, he was born in the biggest state of Germany, which is called Prussia, and now there's no more Prussia. So that's why I brought up the homeland thing when Otter quote unquoted it before, because
Yeah.
if I want to return to my homeland, Prussia no longer exists, so I'd have to go to the area. But golly gee, I'd love to see it, and just I don't know, just look around at what has happened since, and sort of compare and contrast to what I've read in books, and just maybe meet some second or third cousins that might still live there. I don't know, just.
Well, and that's fair too, because I mean, every country definitely has its darker points in history, but there's also there's also a lot of good points in history, and there's still a lot of beauty to it regardless. Because I mean, history is history. There's not much you can change about it.
Nothing actually. You could rewrite it.
Yeah.
You could always lie to people.
You can change the way you view it.
Yes, exactly. You can't change the past, but you can change the way you view it and change, how it can be understood and apprecited.
I know what you mean, but there's too many people who change their view on history to rewrite the fact that slavery happened,
Well, yeah, that's definitely not one of the best points of American history, for sure. I mean, I know America was not the only place to do it, but it's definitely rooted in our minds and in our country's history, since we come from there. So, not the prettiest, but again, we can't change that. We can't change the fact that it happened. And
we will try in legislation.
Okay. But what we can change is how we teach it and how we, educate anybody on it.
Good
and
point.
How and again, like Popcorn said, how we can view it and how we can use that knowledge to our advantage to make the future better.
Definitely, absolutely.
That didn't sound too cheesy.
Well, that's why I admire Germany so much. Is that when it comes to the Holocaust, they make freaking damn sure that you learn it in school. We, I say we. I'm not German. I was born in America. I wish America would actually do the same thing, and to acknowledge its mistakes, also teach its mistakes, all of them.
Absolutely.
And learn from them rather than repeat them.
Well, that's the thing about teaching history. It's not supposed to be biased. It's supposed to be an unbiased retelling of events, or as far as what we know, like regardless if it's good or bad. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, but that's what it should be.
A lot of countries do teach a biased history, though, so that we can be more patriotic as children and grow up to be very dutiful soldiers.
I know.
That's how it works.
Unfortunately.
But Germany hasn't really had the need to have a large army, so it got lucky in that way.
Yeah. Well, luckily. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it just popped into my head. It's not really related to what you guys are talking about, but obviously, like the UK's got its own history when it comes to kicking over the sandcastles of other countries. I mean, that's basically why we have the UK.
You have such a glorious empire, though.
Well,
you just
tell that to the Welsh
and say you and you. Fuck off! We're having tiffin. This is our.
No, I mean,
this is ours now.
Because one unique thing when it comes to travel aspects in the UK is obviously it is 4 nations linked together, and each one of them has their own distinct personality, culture that's separate from English culture. Like for me, Wales is literally a 40-minute train ride away. And then once you get to Wales, everything is different.
Yeah, they got 24.
But it's also the same. Yeah. Well, all the signs are bilingual. They are all in Welsh as well as English, and the geography is different. And it is a different mindset. It is a different culture. And I actually count myself very, very fortunate that I do live so close to Wales that I can cross over and check it out. And obviously I've been to Scotland as well, which again is very, very different. It's not as easy for me to get to as it is to Wales, but it's still like a remarkably different culture, mindset. And it's something really enjoyable to explore. And obviously, I've been over to Ireland as well, North and Republic of Ireland.
Mhm.
And again, it is. I do count myself fortunate that I have been able to explore these areas. And obviously, recently I went to the Isle of Man, which is not part of the UK. It's an independent territory.
No, but wasn't it once part of the empire?
It's part of the British Commonwealth.
It's definitely
and,
Commonwealth. Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
And the UK does organize its defense, but it has its own government.
Okay, it's Commonwealth. Okay,
Gotcha.
That's
So.
And I forget how big is it?
It's
How
small.
big? It's not a very big island. You can get around it very, very quickly.
It's slightly bigger than Rhode Island, I think.
Okay,
Island of
gotcha.
Man. It's very small.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say it's roughly about maybe the same size as Malta, but
I'm giving Otter an American perspective here.
exactly,
Yeah.
doesn't really work.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's not a particularly big island. It's very easy to get around.
I actually don't know this. Popcorn, is there any border crossing for Wales and England and Scotland?
No,
No, you can just
it's
walk
free
in.
movement.
Okay.
You will see big signs usually saying when you're entering Scotland or Wales, but that's about it. There's no checkpoint Charlies.
Does it say now entering Scotland, or does it just say us?
Both.
Yeah, it's probably no different than just driving across state lines here in
That's what I was thinking. Welcome to Colorado, and I see that beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking Arizona. Arizona has the sunset one, right? What one's
I
Colorado?
think so.
Does it have a star?
No, it's definitely not Colorado. I think it is Arizona though. I've only been there once though, so I couldn't say exactly for sure.
I drive across the Arizona border enough. I've seen it a lot.
Did you ever go to Grand Canyon?
Oh, many times. I've camped there at the bottom. I've been at the top.
You camped in the bottom?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I've done the tamer parts of the Colorado River on a canoe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember where my family camped when we went camping in the Grand Canyon. I want to say it was on the it might have been on the south side, I think. But yeah, we did hike down into the canyon to a place called Skeleton Point. It was like a 6-mile round trip or something like that, or maybe it was 6 miles out and then back. I don't exactly. No, it might have been 6-mile round trip. But man, that was a brutal hike. That was in the beginning of July on one of the hottest, clearest days. And
I felt that.
yeah, well, here's the fun part too. There's you're going into the canyon and then going slightly up to this little hill where you can see, I think, the Colorado River in the distance. But it's a 1,900-foot drop, basically, almost immediately.
I think my dad went up that hill. My parents visited Las Vegas back in 1999, and they did visit the Grand Canyon at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. At then they didn't have the glass floored walkway, which I'd probably struggle to use. But
I don't think I'd have a problem. I know my mom would though.
I can get a touch of vertigo every now and again.
I'm so lucky I was born without a fear of heights, or never acquired one.
Yeah, my mom unfortunately has that.
It's natural. It's completely natural.
I'm a little iffy with heights, but I wouldn't say I'm exactly scared of it because I can still brave stuff like that.
We got natural.
Most of the time, I'm good. Most of the time, I'm good.
Well, if you have a problem with heights, you definitely can't come out to Colorado because there are so many tall mountains and cliffs.
Y'all.
I have gotten dizzy climbing mountains and then just said, yeah, I'm going to go down.
Some people just aren't used to the altitude. Altitude sickness is a thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and people who live in the mountains for a long time or are born in mountains actually have a much harder time getting altitude sickness. Like people who are born in Nepal and stuff.
Well, yeah.
Well, I visited Ireland back in 1999 when I was with university, and we went to Croagh Patrick. And I did hike maybe 2/3 of the way up there.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got to like the shoulder of the mountain, and a lot of my friends carried on going. But there was like this kind of vicious crosswind when I got up to the top, and then I
Yeah.
turned around, and all of a sudden, like the slope that I climbed up seemed to like warp and almost turn into a sheer cliff. And I had to
Yeah.
close my eyes and blink for a couple of seconds and said, "Yeah, I've had enough.
Oh yeah, the right
I'm going down."
the right crosswind in the right environment can create a nasty effect if you're climbing and you're not quite used to it. I've definitely experienced that on occasion when climbing the Rockies, but not quite as often. But yeah, going back real quick to Benny's point, I mean, look at Everest. I mean, there are Sherpas who live around the area who are used to high altitude, who, basically get money for people to help them carry up supplies because they're used to this environment. And most other climbers are not quite as used to it.
Almost none, because it's like a genetic thing.
Oh yeah, I mean
yes and no. It can be something you get used to. Because remember, I was born and raised in the Midwest,
right?
At kind of sea level, and then I lived in New York for a little bit. And by the time I came out to Colorado, I wasn't really used to it, so my body did have to acclimatize. And now I'm just used to living at higher altitude.
I think it's both. I think for the Sherpas, it's both for them. I think at that altitude,
true.
Like they can make the most of the little oxygen, like in their lungs.
Well, you get a lot of like sports teams that will do like acclimatization. They'll arrive at a place at that higher altitude and they'll do training for like a couple of weeks before they're actually like due to compete, because they have to like get used to the thinner air.
Yeah. Well, even at like 5,000 or 6,000 feet above sea level, it can be a little bit to get used to for somebody who's not used to it at all.
Oh yeah, especially if you're boiling water or making eggs or something.
That's only affected a little bit. That can be affected a little bit. The important thing to remember is to usually use a little more water than you intend to, because it's so much drier and higher altitude and stuff like that.
Definitely.
Yeah, fun fact.
But that's what it is, and it's all about getting those like new experiences. Because why do we want to travel?
To see more of the world, to explore what we don't know. And I think it's interesting too, because even if we have all these booklets and itineraries and we see all the pictures and stuff, it never actually prepares us for what we see. Because my parents shared tons of pictures with my sister and I when they were in Portugal, but it never actually prepared us for what it was to be there, to experience it in person.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing I do love about different places, and I do have to emphasize here that I love being in different places. It's the traveling part that I'm not necessarily a fan of, because I'm a very anxious traveler. I make myself do it because the alternative is not doing anything, and who wants to do that?
Right. I wouldn't say I'm an anxious traveler, but unfortunately I do have motion sickness, so I don't always like the travel aspect.
Isn't there
either.
a statistic that most people die within 50 miles of their own birthplace? Like, some people don't.
I heard that, so I moved.
Yeah. I don't know if it's true, but that's just what I've heard. I don't know if it could be a wives' tale.
Oh man, I don't know, but
my
family definitely did not move away from our home for that reason.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is like it is that thing that drives us, so that desire to explore, to see new places.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and
there's only so much that the internet can do for you.
And there's also the fact that, if you only get your knowledge and information from one place, your, experience becomes rigid and stale. And you want to, go to new places to get more experience, points of views. And, then you'll have a much bigger perspective, a lot more empathy, a lot more understanding, and your arguments will be better. It is just everything just is enhanced when you, visit other places and experience other cultures.
Because one thing that just popped into my head, like when Otter and Seren would have visited Lisbon, you guys, you come from a country where cities are very orderly laid out in grids, whereas European cities are much more like organic and higgledy-piggledy.
Especially the old ones.
The very old ones.
London, I think of them. Yeah.
London isn't even really that old of a city, but
London,
they've rebuilt on the same road plans over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So there's like ancient parts of it, but the road plan itself is like exactly the same. And even with Liverpool, that's built around the original 7 streets from like 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, I was thinking of the city of London in London. That's what I was thinking of. Like,
yeah,
because it's there's a whole city built around that city that's been there forever, never conquered by the Romans or whatever.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's one word to explain that. All space.
The final frontier.
Space.
Space.
These are the voyages of the Starship Otterpop. Its continuing mission to end Strange New Podcast, to explore all these fun places and tell you about them, and to
risk
boldly
censorship.
go where no censor will
And
say
demonetization.
No, not the demonetization hammer. Oh
No!
Bang, bang, denazification. Demonification. Denomination. I'm dying.
Even in your anger, Lord Vader, you demonetized her. No!
What I definitely have to do whenever I travel somewhere new next time, and by the way, there's actually a possibility that Sarah and I are going to go to Mexico later this year, because our parents are probably going to be there, like maybe September, October-ish. We don't know for sure yet, but it's what we're talking about. But next time I go somewhere new, I'll have to get more records of like the experiences that I have there, like the places I've been, the food I've eaten, the people I've talked to, like that kind of stuff. I gotta do more of that next time, because I only did a little bit of it when I was in Portugal, and I kind of wish I would have done more, you know?
Lavas tus manos, por favor.
Because if you think about it, that would kind of be maybe a fun video to work on at some point, is just like, videos and pictures and talking about my experience in a brand new foreign land that's
Otterpop
maybe not actually foreign.
Mexico.
Otterpop reacts.
I think if it doesn't get in the way of you just chilling out and having a good time, I always think a travel vlog's a good idea.
Yeah, well, I think for me too is that because my memory isn't all that great, it's easier for me to forget stuff, even the stuff that I feel like should be more memorable. Kind of like that Portugal trip.
Stuff does become a blur though.
Yeah. So it's like I'd like to be able to have something to look back on and to be like, oh wait, I remember this now, and then just have the memory flooding back to me and just being like, okay, I remember this. I remember the feeling. Yes, this is what I wanted. Because I don't get to experience that very often because my memory is so awful.
Yeah, it's really hard to like remember what the experiences are like. I mean, when I did my cruise, I made sure I took so many pictures and that I filmed so much video because I just wanted to be able to remember it. But I don't know. I think living in an age where we can literally take thousands of pictures and film for thousands of hours, I think it's a situation where that does count against us because we can end up with so much. We're just too overwhelmed to experience it all. And
you ask yourself the question, was I even there?
Possibly.
Well, it's kind of like editing. That's why maybe you get a lot of material, but you only include the important bits.
I mean, you remember the emotions, right, that you experienced when you had there? Perhaps that's something you can draw on. Maybe you could paint a picture with that.
Possibly.
I remember the way like the cruise ship moved in the ocean.
Yeah.
But it's the feeling that you had in your legs when you were doing it. And when I was back on dry land, I found myself still moving like that. Like I was walking this kind of weird bob to my step.
I remember,
and, it's like I was like, I kind of missed that.
Yeah, I sometimes draw upon emotions to paint a picture of how it was, especially in childhood when you don't have much else to go on because I didn't take any pictures.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and that's probably what I'm going to have to rely on going forward because I don't want to lose that either. If I take too many pictures, I feel like I'm not experiencing it.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing I don't want to because my best friend, she worked in a retail park, and they would get like a lot of like Chinese visitors, people coming from mainland China, and she explained to me that from their cultural standpoint, they would literally just go around and get their photographs taken in front of these iconic landmarks. They would never really have the time to experience where they were. They could literally be in London in the morning and then be in Liverpool in the afternoon. That's like a 250-mile drive.
Yeah.
But for them, it's all about the photographs. It's like them showing the people that they know that they're wealthy enough to be able to go to these places and see these things. So it's a very different like cultural mindset in the experience of travel. Whereas people, I want to savor where I am. I don't want to be having to rush around and take photographs and then look at the photographs later. I want to remember what I felt like when I was there.
Yeah, no, I get that.
That was the one thing I didn't like about a coach trip. When I was in San Francisco back in 2006, and we visited the Muir Redwood Forest, which is absolutely stunning. It's a breathtaking.
I'd love to see that.
Been there many times. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, but I only had like 45 minutes there. It's not long enough to experience that.
No, not really.
I'd need at least an hour and a half just to like wander around and explore. So I was really just almost not quite running through, but I was taking a lot of photographs, and I never really had the chance to just stop and then just absorb it.
This is what's kind of nice about me and my family living as close to the Rockies as we do, is that we do have so many chances to just go out and, take a hike for an hour and a half, and, as we're walking up a trail or a mountain or whatever, we can there's so many chances we have to look around, to pause, to take a moment and just enjoy the view, and then, keep going on and see, oh, look, here's another part of the view, and just take it all in, and we have so many chances to be able to do that.
Yeah, there's always something different. And I mean, I sometimes describe myself as a tourist in my own city. I can go to the park, which is like literally like a 20-minute walk, and I will always end up taking photographs in there. Even though I've probably taken a photograph of that area at least a dozen times before in the last 5 years. But there's always just something about it that just makes me want to pull out a camera and just take an image.
Yeah.
It just feels like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
If I'm in an area that is specifically known for cryptids, I would like to take a like the Santa Luis Mountains in California, where I was looking for the Dark Watchers. Never saw one. Too bad.
Maybe the Dark Watcher was inside you all along.
All along, it's true. It's the meaning of friendship.
You're meeting like Slenderman later.
Yeah, Santa Lucia Mountains.
Well, that was a fun conversation that we had. That definitely went on a little bit longer than expected, but that's okay.
You got a lot to edit out.
I mean, got a lot to edit out. Plus, there was like an entire 10-15-minute section at the beginning where we were just talking about other stuff, so...
Oh, right.
Something like that.
That's the RaftCast off the record.
Off the...
Yeah.
Off the raft.
If you want to hear some exclusive, random stuff, you got to become a Patreon. Or patron.
Yeah.
Patron of Patreon. Fudge.
And sign this waiver saying you're not easily offended.
Anyway, bye everyone.
We will see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the RaftCast, everybody. I hope that we were not rambling and ranting too much, but...
Oh, we were.
Oh, I'm sorry to disappoint you, Otter.
It's a podcast, who cares? You chose to listen to this.
It's your fault.
This is the high-grade quality content that you asked us for.
Pretty much. Thank you all for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And as usual, until the next video or podcast, check you later.
Smell you later.
And I swear it's the truth.